Hi guys, welcome back to the Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do that. Just pick up your smartphone, go over to Apple Podcasts, click that subscribe button. Leave me a review too, if you would. Tell me what episode you like the best, what topics you like when we discuss. I really appreciate it. It helps other people discover the show. It increases our ranking in the Apple Podcasts algorithm. So greatly appreciate everybody who has been hitting that subscribe button lately. So what I want to do today on the show is just a little bit different. We're just a couple of hours out from my event at James Madison University last night. That's why this show's dropping just a little bit later than normal on today, Thursday morning. But what I want to do is I want to give you just a little bit of an idea of what went into this event and what it was like behind the scenes. Because it's crazy enough to see, there were 1,000 radical trans protesters outside of the event. There were, we had a full house, packed house. We actually had to turn a couple hundred people, 200 people away at the door because we had sold out the event. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes experience of what went on in places that you couldn't see. So not something that was live streamed, not something that was going on outside at the quad. So I thought we would walk through that because it's pretty interesting to see this stuff from behind the scenes. Also, a little later on in the show, we're going to talk about Tucker Carlson again. We're going to talk about the new video that he released that, funnily enough, he posted this video maybe 12 hours ago, 11 hours ago. And it already has, I think, 4 times as many views as his nightly program on Fox would get every night. It's got like 12 million views on the thing. It's absolutely nuts. So we're going to talk about that and talk about, what might he do next? Where is he going to go? We're also going to talk about Mattel. Mattel made a new Barbie. They debuted a new Barbie, I should say. And this Barbie has Down syndrome. So I want to show that to you. It's very heartwarming. It's very nice. It's very pro-life. It's wonderful. We're going to show you that video and talk about some of the negative reactions that's been getting. But yeah, let's go behind the scenes at James Madison University last night in the week leading up to this event, and then what happened from a security standpoint and with the protesters on campus last night. Let's get to it. All right, guys, I want to talk to you about buy optimizers. Do you ever get so busy with kids, with your family, with work, with appointments, just with life, that your healthy habits just kind of go out the window? Well, if you don't, kudos to you. But if you're like me, then that certainly happens to you. You're probably more stressed, you're more tired, you're more run down. Life is fast. I get it. Life is busy. But it is important to take care of your mind and to take care of your body. That's why I want to introduce you to Magnesium Breakthrough. Magnesium the importance of magnesium cannot be overstated. Magnesium is responsible for over 300 body reactions. And Magnesium Breakthrough is the only magnesium formula that delivers all the 7 different forms of magnesium, each with its unique benefits, including feeling more calm, centered, and in control of stress levels. Magnesium Breakthrough will calm your nervous system, which is great. And you will notice a significant improvement in your overall sense of well-being. Life gets busy, it gets stressful. I never go a day without taking magnesium. I rely on magnesium. You have to give it a try. You have to try Magnesium Breakthrough. Go to megbreakthrough.com/Liz Wheeler and order now. If you use my promo code Wheeler10 at checkout, you can receive 10% off any order in addition to the discount that you will receive by using my promo code Wheeler10. You might also receive some amazing gifts with your purchase for being a fan of my show. Win-win here. So go to megbreakthrough.com/Liz Wheeler, megbreakthrough.com/Liz Wheeler. Use my promo code Wheeler10. Okay. So last night's event at James Madison University was so much fun. We knew it was going to be a crazy event in the lead up the past week or so. There's been a lot of agitation on campus and a lot of agitation online. I've shared some of the stuff with you as it's unfolded, how the debate team at James Madison University issued a condemnation of me speaking. The debate team, who, by the way, I asked if they showed up last night. When I'm up at the podium, I asked if anybody from the debate team was there because I was hoping they would, it's an open mic. I was hoping that they would take to the microphone and try to debate me if they disagree with me so strongly, but nope, not a single student from the debate team showed up. The funny part of the debate team's condemnation is obviously that they call themselves a debate team, yet are unwilling to debate anything they disagree with. But the question I wanted to ask them is the reason that they condemned me isn't just because they disagreed with me. You would think they'd be sort of used to the idea of people disagreeing with them since they're the debate team. But they said the reason that they pretend to value free speech but don't actually value free speech, is they said that I'm not a good faith advocate or a good faith individual. And I don't know what that means. I legitimately don't know what that means. Like, what do they mean? I'm not a good faith individual. What do you mean good faith? Like, I'm here. I'm willing to have the discussion with you. I value you. I acknowledge your inherent dignity and worth. I don't know what good faith means. And I really wanted to ask them that. I wanted them to define what they meant when they said that I'm not a good faith individual. But alas and alack, they did not show up. They were complete no-shows. So that happened leading up to it. There were also, and I know I don't talk about this a lot, many speakers who speak at these public events that become very publicized don't talk about this aspect, but in the lead up, because we don't want to give it more attention than it deserves. We don't want to encourage the behavior by highlighting it. But I received an incredible amount of death threats leading up to this event. And I want to describe a couple of those to you today, not to give them more attention than they deserve. I'm not sitting here pretending I'm a victim. It doesn't frighten me. I just dismiss them. That's the way to properly order this. We have an extremely tight security team that takes care of my safety and security and the safety and the security of my team in this event. So not worried about my safety, but I do think it's important to talk about this just to understand, so that you and I understand the reality of this opposition that we're facing. That it's not just silly leftists online. It's not just kind of loser snowflakes or snowflakes behaving like losers on the debate team who refuse to show up after posting this virtue signaling statement online. I received death threats that showed pictures of me with crosshairs over the face, which was a particularly disturbing image that was sent to me, a graphic that was sent to me, crosshairs over my face. I mean, you can imagine what this feels like I'm pretty used to this kind of stuff, rolls off my back. But you can imagine what this feels like for members of my family who aren't quite as used to it. It's not nice. It's not fun. It's not good. There was also sent to me, what's ostensibly a link to music, but is actually the lyrics of the song are calling for violence against me. I mean, it's stuff that you wouldn't want to happen, not just to yourself, but you wouldn't want to happen to somebody that you love. And again, I'm not sitting here pretending I'm a victim. I am fully aware of the fight that I'm fighting. I'm fully aware that this fight is a fight of good versus evil, but I do think it's good for us to sit here and make sure that we understand that this isn't just an event on a campus where silly snowflakes can't handle an opinion, that these protesters aren't just afraid of ideas, that they really, truly want the destruction of our country, and they really, truly want the destruction of us when we stand for the values that we stand for. It's really important, I think, to understand the reality of, well, what do I always say? Acknowledge the reality of the political enemy that we face. In this case, they came in the form of radical trans activists and these death threats. And I was the face of this event. This event wasn't about me. This event was about the values that I spoke about. It was about the ideology of transgenderism, hence the title of the speech. So it's not, when I say it's not personal, like, sure, these threats came towards me personally, but it's not really about me. It's about all of us and the values that we stand for. So the event itself was incredible. It was a packed house. Every seat was taken. There were people standing in the back. Unfortunately, and I want to speak to these people directly, the event was so full, we had to turn away more than 200 people at the door. We just didn't have room for them in the venue. It was completely packed. So to those people who showed up that weren't able to get in and attend, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you guys. I'm so sorry that we didn't have room for you. I hope you were able to watch it streaming online. I know that a lot of you just ended up hanging out outside of the building and watching out there. So we felt your solidarity. And again, so grateful that you showed up. We actually sold over 4,000 tickets they were free tickets, but people signed up for these tickets. However, many of those tickets were actually bots. The left tried to stymie the event. They tried to make sure that nobody attended the event by having bots come and fake sign up for tickets. But even though they did that, it did not work because we had sold out. One of the things that I want to share with you too is I think these events are an incredible production, right? It's an incredible production to actually stage the event in person. It's an incredible with all literally the venue and the lighting and the cameras and the tickets and the security and all of that. It's credible production to stream it online. That's not just as easy as hitting a button and saying stream. That's a huge video production to stream it in the quality, in the way that we do, in the way that the Young America's Foundation does it. It's also an incredible production. And this is the part that a lot of people don't know. The students who organize this event have to jump through so many hoops just to bring me to their campus. So the students that hosted this was the chapter of the Young Americans for Freedom. It's part of YAF. That's who I speak with. And they do such a good job. By the way, the national version of YAF does such a good job equipping the students on campus to host this. But these students have been working for weeks, if not months, to bring me to their campus. They have to get approval from the student government. They have to get financing to host this kind of event because it is such a production. And meanwhile, I want to share with you some of the stories that these students told me. Because after the event, I usually go out to dinner with the students who put on the event, the board of the YAF chapter. And so they're telling me, I asked them, I was like, okay, so what's it like? What's it been like for you on your campus the last week? I've seen from afar, I followed all the tweets, all the Instagram stories. I've seen what's been happening on your campus, that it's become this campus-wide debate over whether I should be allowed to speak on campus. I was like, what's it been like for you? I've been at a distance, but you've been right there in the middle of it. And some of the things they told me, one of the members of the YAF chapter told me that she was out walking her dog this week. And this was after it was very widely known that I was coming to campus and that the YAF chapter was the one bringing me to campus. That obviously increased the profile of the people involved with YAF. So they became well-known on campus as well this week. And one of the young women who's a part of this chapter said she was out walking her dog wearing a YAF t-shirt, and known because she was now known on campus. And while she was walking her dog, a car swerved and almost deliberately hit her, slammed on the brakes at the last second, but certainly intended to terrorize her, if not outright harm her. She said the only reason that she wasn't hit is because her boyfriend was walking with her and her dog at the time and pushed her out of the way to protect her. So first of all, that's the kind of boyfriend you want to get. That's the kind of boyfriend you want to have. But that's the reality of what these students risked by bringing me onto campus because of how the left reacts. It's scary, isn't it? Like it's very jarring to me to hear the reality. And I have so much respect for the courage of these students to bring me on campus. Another student, and I'm not gonna say what her major is. I'm not gonna say what her cohort is out of respect for her privacy, because I don't want any retaliation against her. But she said that her major cohort, or people in her major cohort, tried to get her kicked out of her cohort because she was affiliated with this event, just for inviting me to speak on campus. Keep in mind, Dr. Fauci spoke on the same campus and Jim Acosta spoke on the same campus just a couple months ago. None of those students faced the backlash, but these students faced incredible backlash. And then this is maybe the most interesting thing that the students dealt with at the entire week, is what happened inside the classrooms. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about liver health formula. Guys, you have to start taking this right now. You have to start taking care of your liver. Why? Listen to this data. The latest data from the American Heart Association indicates that adults who have a fatty liver are 3.5 times more likely to have heart failure than those without it. As if that's not bad enough, the American Liver Foundation says that 100 million Americans have fatty liver. So you can do the math on that. That means a lot of us, probably a lot of you listening to this show right now, are at risk. We throw everything at our liver, right? Cholesterol, alcohol, toxins, statins, cigarettes. That's why so many of us have a sluggish, fatty liver that makes us gain weight and lose energy. It's not a good thing and puts us at risk of this heart failure. For decades now, your liver has helped you with over 500 key functions every day. It is time that you help your liver. I highly recommend Liver Health Formula. It's an all-natural supplement which contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge, help protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA. It's recommended by American doctors. You can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of nano-powered omega-3 to keep your heart healthy too. Try Liver Health Formula by going to getliverhelp.com/Liz. That's getliverhelp.com/Liz. You can also claim a free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Liz. Okay, so the background of what's happened to these students or their experience on campus this last week, I'm sitting at dinner with them, asking them about their experiences. They're telling me these stories, and they say, listen, everything that you saw online, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, what you saw on campus, there were some we'll get to the signs in a minute, the posters that were put up around campus, but all of the debate team condemnation, they're like, but what you didn't see was what happened inside the classroom. Inside the classrooms, it's been reported that at least one professor, we're pretty sure that it's more than one, but I want to stick to just what we can absolutely verify. At least one professor on the day that I spoke yesterday, so Wednesday, at least one professor wore pride flags all over her outfit while teaching in class yesterday. And as if that's not an obvious statement enough, I suppose she has a right to do that. I don't know if that violates the dress code at JMU or not. I have no reason to think that it does. But what verbally accompanied that outfit was this professor encouraging students, if the students part of the JMU community, I believe was the phrase used, to protest my event. This is a fireable offense. A professor cannot encourage students to partake in political protests while lecturing during class. That is not allowed. Moreover, these professors attended the protests. So that in and of itself, you can lose your job for doing that. It's not allowed on this campus. Professors are not allowed to encourage students to engage in a particular form of political activism, to say, attend this protest in favor or opposed to this ideology. They're not allowed to do that. They're simply not allowed to do that, but it happened at James Madison University in the classrooms. And of course, the result of this is twofold. Some students listen to their teachers and they actually do attend these protests, which means that teachers in college that are in a position of power are actually exploiting their students. But moreover, the conservative students on this college campus, I mean, this has an incredible chilling effect on their speech. Because if you're a conservative student, if you're maybe one of the kids that were one of the students in the YAF chapter, or maybe there's tons of other conservative students on campus, aren't you going to be afraid now of speaking up in class? Because you're going to be worried that maybe you're going to face retaliation for your viewpoint, given the fact that your professor not only obviously opposes your viewpoint, but actively encourages other students to protest you, to protest what you believe, your values, and your politics. Incredibly disturbing to hear this happening. It's not surprising. We know this is happening, but this is just an idea of what the students have experienced on their campus. But I want to say this is so encouraging. I was so delighted to hear this. They told me last night at dinner that the result of this was not, they were a little overwhelmed by this, right? This was the first large public event that the YAF chapter had hosted on James Madison University. And I don't think that there's anything that you can do to prepare for what this is like, for the threats and the backlash and the protests and just the overwhelming attendance of an event like this. It's a really big deal. This was the first time it had happened for these students. I'm super proud of them, but they said they didn't realize there were so many conservatives on campus. Their YAF chapter had half a dozen people involved, right? They thought that they were just this very small cohort of conservatives. And what happened as a result of this event, because of a lot of this backlash, is conservative students just started coming out of the woodwork. There were so many students that attended this event, so many students who wanted to, so many students who told the YAF chapter that they were supported. And you should have seen these students at dinner last night. They were just bright-eyed, encouraged, energetic, and beaming because they were like, we had no idea that there were so many conservatives who were existing quietly on this campus, who were looking for a community just like this. I got to tell you, my heart almost burst with pride for these students. It was the most heartwarming part of the entire experience to hear that all these conservative students not only showed up to the event, like that's great. I'm so happy and grateful that people showed up to my event, but that this started a movement on their campus. So kudos to all of those. To all the students part of that YF chapter. I expect and I predict that your events are going to be great in the future, and that you're going to have your events, not just public speaking events, but that your club events are going to draw a lot of conservatives. Your lives are never going to be the same. So outside of the event, this is sort of the security part and the protests part. I'll give you a little peek into this before we move into what we're going to talk about next. About 1,000 trans activists showed up outside. So what was interesting is when we were driving to the event, I received a text message of a video of, it was on Twitter, a video posted on Twitter. I think it was by a local news reporter. I don't have that pulled up. I'm not sure who took that video. But it showed the protests, and about an hour prior to the start of the event, there were already hundreds and hundreds of trans protesters showing up outside. So obviously, like, I'm showing this to my team. We're looking at it in the car as we drive up, and it's exciting. It's good to see that these protesters are out there. But I got to tell you, I wish that these protesters had listened to the speech. I wish that we'd been able to pipe the audio out to them, because they're the ones that really need to hear this message. So what they started doing, I guess, is they were protesting in the quad, which is the central part of campus. And, they had a bunch of signs saying, like, no hate, no bigotry, trans rights are human rights. And that's, I guess, what they did for most of the night is they chanted trans rights are human rights. And I wish I had a chance to ask them. This is the question that I always want to ask when I hear that phrase. What does that mean? Trans rights are human rights. Like, what rights are you being deprived? This is a completely, not to play on the debate team's use of this phrase, but this is a completely good faith question. Like, what rights are you being deprived of right now? Because that's the one thing that I think we have common ground on, is we all want equal rights for all people. Like, I will stand side by side with these radical trans protesters who hate me and want to kill me to stand up for their human rights. They have equal rights. They're literally exercising their right to protest. They're exercising their right to free speech. They're allowed to dress however they want and call themselves whatever they want. Like, what right is being deprived? None. They actually, the truth of the matter is I don't think they understand what the word right means. That they're not facing institutional discrimination based on however they choose to identify. Nothing of the sort. They're not being deprived of any right, any opportunity. What they want, I think, is for you and I to be forced to celebrate their ideology, which is not a right. But I actually do want them to answer when you say trans rights or human rights, what does that even mean? Like, what are trans rights? What do you not enjoy that I enjoy? That's the thing that I would like. So they were protesting out in the quad. Then they began to, as my speech came to a close, they actually began to march towards the venue. Our security was super tight. Like I said, huge thanks to the security team for keeping everyone safe. But we got notice as we were doing a photo line with the YAF chapter that the protest was marching towards us, that they were converging around the venue where we were speaking, or where the event was being hosted. So nothing ended up happening. They didn't make it all the way to surrounding the venue before we left. We got out of there. After we left the event, the school itself, so this wasn't just people on campus or students on the campus, the school itself lit up the main building on campus with the transgender flag colors. I'm going to show you that in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about 4 Patriots. Guys, you have to get 4 Patriots. Let me tell you why. China has already screwed us over once with COVID. I, for one, do not want it to happen again. Right now, as we speak, as you're listening and watching right now, the Chinese Communist Party is hoarding massive amounts of food. This might seem like a really weird thing to do, and I suppose it is, but they're right now hoarding 2/3 of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. And when they're asked, well, why are you doing that? The Chinese Communist Party just lies. They don't want to tell us. But the truth of the matter is, China thinks that we are on the verge of a global food shortage. And China is the world's #1 food importer. They rely on us and other countries around the world to keep their people fed. So if there is a global food shortage, their billion people, that's how many people live in China, aren't going to be fed. What are they going to face? Civil unrest, panic, riots. It's going to be simply awful. And so what you and I should be doing right now is observing what the Chinese Communist Party is doing and asking ourselves, well, how does that impact me? How does that impact you? And the answer to that is 2 words. It is food shortages. We are going to face that here in the United States. That's why you must stock up on 4 Patriots survival food. I really do highly recommend you begin your own stockpile of 4 Patriots survival food kits. The kits are compact. They stack easy. They have different breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food kits by typing my code Liz at checkout. Just go to 4patriots.com and use my promo code Liz to get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food. That's 4patriots.com, promo code Liz. 4patriots.com, promo code Liz. So let me show you this picture. This is the main campus building, and it was, as we left the event, it was lit up with the transgender flag colors. That's light pink, light blue, and white. This means that it was officially approved by the school administration. This wasn't just students. wasn't just protesters. And Amber Athey from The Spectator asked the school for comment and received no response, at least at the time of the filming of this show. And I think it's worth noting, I know we've talked about this before, it's worth noting what exactly those transgender colors or the transgender flag, what that means and who it was invented by. The light pink, light blue, and white striped flag was invented by an absolute creep. A creep who abandoned his family and quote unquote turned transgender, who wrote short stories about children, erotic stories, sexualizing children. I mean, pedophilia behavior, really, really creepy stuff. And this is what James Madison University chose to display and promote in their main building. It's utterly disturbing. So the speech itself, I told the transgender activists before the speech that I think that they were going to be surprised by what I said. I'm not coming to rail against them. I'm not coming to try to squash them or stomp them or destroy them or put them in their place. This is what I said to them. I'm going to start by saying something that you may not expect me to say. And this is something I want to say directly to anybody in this room who identifies as LGBTQIA or anybody outside of this event protesting. I don't hate you, obviously. I care deeply about you, which is why I'm willing to be here tonight, despite the fact that there have been not only ad hominem insults hurled my way by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, but also threats to my safety and the safety of my family. I don't do this for fun. I do this because I care so deeply about you, about your body, your soul, your identity, your spirit, about you. But somebody does hate you. Somebody does want bad things for you. In fact, I want to take this one step further. Someone is lying to you today. Now, that someone is either me, I'm either standing up here telling you lies, or the transgender activists, the queer theorists are telling you lies. But somebody is telling you a lie. That's just a tiny snippet of what I talked about. I'd kind of told you guys beforehand what the topic of my speech or the thesis was going to be. That is what I spoke about. You can find the full thing or the full speech on youtube.com/YAFTV or rumble.com/Liz Wheeler. If you haven't watched it, I do recommend it. A couple of the question and answer parts I want to show you because it's really interesting to me to see where the transgender activists' minds are, like what information they know or what misconceptions they're operating under. And I think some of these questions from last night really gave us a good glimpse into the minds of some of these transgender activists. And I'm not showing these in order to destroy these people. I actually have more respect for the leftists and the transgender activists who attended the event, who came into the building, did it the right way, got up at the microphone, had the courage to challenge my viewpoints. I respect that. I think you're wrong in your ideology. I think some of the things you said were stupid. But I have so much more respect for you coming in and engaging with me than for the people who wouldn't even listen, who falsely accused me of saying things I never said or just marched outside shouting trans rights or human rights. The people that came inside, like, kudos to that. I know members of the school newspaper, a bunch of them came in. They're all very leftist. They're obviously not being trained to be straight journalists, but at least they came in and asked questions. And I appreciate that. So I want to show you this question and answer, this little clip of a question and answer I was actually quite surprised that this young woman did not know the reality of the question that she was asking. Take a look.
Hi, my name is Regine. I'm also a member of the Breeze, and my question for you is, gonadotropin-releasing hormones, otherwise known as puberty hormone blockers, are not only used for transitioning individuals, but have also been approved by the FDA to treat conditions such as endometriosis, prostate cancer, and infertility. What scientific evidence do you have that its use is harmful to children?
Did the FDA approve it for the use of gender dysphoric children?
It has not been disapproved nor approved yet.
Has it been approved? Has it been approved?
Well, it just like the vaccine.
Has it been approved?
Not quite yet, but it has not been disapproved.
So no?
There's no disapproval, however.
Well, that's not how approval works. Approval is either it's been approved or it hasn't been approved. Has it been approved?
It has not. There's no disapproval.
It has not been approved. So it's an experimental drug that's being used on children, and it's one of the only drugs that we use to stop a healthy function of a body, versus if you take an antibiotic, what is that for? An antibiotic is to cure, to restore your natural human function because it's been, you have a bacterial overgrowth or something like that. Other drugs are used to restore a healthy status to a body. This drug is being used to harm an otherwise healthy function of the body.
But the FDA has approved its use to treat prostate cancer, infertility, and endometriosis. So how is
Yes,
its
and they've
use
approved
harmful?
chemotherapy to treat breast cancer, but if you were taking it to the point that you were losing all your hair, I think we could both agree that that would not be a healthy use of it.
It's funny. As soon as I get off stage, I always think of these like great zingers that I should have used up there. Not that I'm sitting here being too critical of that question. It is interesting that she doesn't care that that the FDA approved it. But I should have said, well, yeah, cocaine hasn't been disapproved for use either, because it's that's it's an unfalsifiable fallacy. If something's not disapproved, that does not mean that it is implicitly approved. The next clip that I want to show you, I felt so much compassion. My heart actually was aching during the event for this young man. This is exactly who my speech was about. This is exactly who I was talking about. This is exactly who I was talking to. And I know you're going to feel that same heartache when you hear this young man. Take a listen.
As someone who has self-harmed numerous times before coming out as trans, I now am trans, and I have since stopped self-harming and attempting suicide as I had beforehand. So I also find the statistic that you have claimed that many people who transition start harming themselves then very strange. Where have you gotten that information?
I don't think I said that. First of all, I'm really glad that you're in a better mental place. I think we can all agree that if someone is trying to self-harm or if someone is trying to kill themselves and they've gotten to a point that they're not, I'm happy about that. I'm not happy that you've embraced queer theory, because I ultimately think that won't serve you well. I don't think that will help you flourish. I wish that someone had said to you before you began your transition that you are beautiful just the way that you are, that you're beautiful in the body that you were made with, that God gave you, and that there's mental health care for you that can help you with your tendency or your inclination to harm yourself, to harm your body. There's things that you can seek, and I encourage you to seek, to address that without embracing an ideology that will ultimately lead to self-destruction. There are studies, if you're talking about the suicide rates of people who undergo transitions, there are studies that show that if you undergo a surgical transition, there might be a year or so where the suicide rate goes down, but it returns to its previous rate several years post-surgery, in addition to you having the physical issues that come with these experimental surgeries, which are not just experimental, but they come with a lot of side effects. They don't work. If they weren't underpinned by a leftist ideology, they wouldn't be approved for use in the public, because they would be acknowledged in the medical community that they do more harm than good. So if you're looking for help, there are so many people that are willing to help you. I encourage you to go to GenSpect. They're an amazing group that is willing to help people just like you, because you are worth it. Thank you for your question.
I would like to just ask one follow-up question.
Sure.
So you do mention that people after surgery do end up self-harming. Are you aware of why?
Yeah, so the argument that underpins your question is you're saying that our country is not tolerant, right? That they're bullied and they're pushed towards mental health issues because of, you would probably say, people like me. But the study that I'm referencing is actually from a Scandinavian country where they don't have necessarily the same moral fabric that we do. It's a very inclusive, very tolerant society, and there isn't the same division on this issue. So that statistic that I referenced, I believe it's from Sweden. You can fact check me on which Scandinavian country that it's from, but that wasn't a study that was done here in the United States. So the reason that they're continuing to self-harm after is because a transition, whether it's social, whether it's chemical, whether it's surgical, is not a cure for what they're suffering from. If you feel disassociated from your own body, it's either a dissociative disorder or it's a gender disorder where you don't feel comfortable, you feel like you were born in the wrong body. But surgery doesn't cure that. Chemical castration doesn't cure that. What you need, or anybody suffering from this, what they need is the mental health care to actually address those thoughts and those feelings. They don't need something that simply mutilates the outside of their body.
And I'm not going to sit here and pretend to diagnose this young man. My heart just aches for him. But you saw him. You saw that he was suffering and that he'd been exploited by the queer theorists who told him that the answer to his pain was to reject his identity. And that just breaks my heart. We have a generation of young people who are crying for help, and instead we've allowed the left to capture them. This is why I don't care about any of the threats. This is why I don't care about the backlash. I don't care about the ad hominems, because I refuse to sit by and let a young man like that suffer and be used as a pawn in an evil political game. The suicide rate was something that was brought up multiple times in the question and answer. It's such an emotionally manipulative piece of rhetoric that the left uses. And I want to show you this next question and my answer, because this is exactly, if you had to put it in a nutshell, how the left weaponizes or exploits these children. This, in a nutshell, is exactly how they do it. Take a look at this one.
Hello.
Hi.
I just want to ask, how do you justify your rhetoric given the suicidality of trans people? Would you rather have trans kid or dead kids?
So what you're engaging in is a logical fallacy that is emotionally manipulative, rhetorical play, and I reject the premise, as all conservatives should. If you actually care about LGBTQIA people who are self-harming, who are suffering from comorbidities, then you will do the loving, compassionate thing, and you will speak reality to them. You will tell them that they are beautiful the way that they are. You will tell them that you care about them. You will help them seek the mental health care that actually does change the rates of self-harm and suicide, whereas the transitions don't. So I don't play around with
that.
Well,
Transitions definitely do decrease suicidality in trans people.
Well, could you cite statistics that show that?
I don't have the exact thing. I mean, do you?
Yes,
do you have,
I cited it before in the first question.
Study and everything like that.
I do. Yes.
Can I have that?
Yes, you can.
Like, can you say?
Are you talking about? Do I have it up here?
Yeah.
On this podium right now.
Yeah, because that's your.
Well, how
that's
about
what
you
you're
hand me
asking
your statistics first, and then I'll hand you mine.
No, that's what you were asking me. So if you're not prepared to give out that information, why should I be?
Did you listen to the question about 3 people ago, where I
Yes.
cited the studies?
You didn't cite the study. You simply said, "This is the way it was."
How about this? I'll post my study, not my study. I'll post the study that I reference on Twitter after this event, and you post yours.
Sounds good.
Thank you for the question.
All right, so as promised, I posted it on Twitter. Anybody can go and look at this study. It's actually from the NIH, and this is the title of it: Long-Term Follow-Up of Transsexual Persons Undergoing Sex Reassignment Surgery, a Cohort Study in Sweden. Of course, I had the reference to this study. I do not make up statistics as the other side does, or fall for manipulative rhetoric intended just to exploit fear and other feelings. Let me read you just this tiny little paragraph. This is the results of the study. The overall mortality for sex reassigned persons was higher during follow-up with a 95% confidence interval than for controls of the same birth sex, particularly death from suicide. Sex reassigned persons also had an increased risk for suicide attempts and psychiatric inpatient care. Comparisons with controls matched on reassigned sex yielded similar results. Female to male, but not male to females, had a higher risk for criminal convictions than their respective birth sex controls. So the conclusion of this study says that persons with transsexualism after sex reassignment have considerably higher risks for mortality, suicidal behavior, and psychiatric morbidity than the general population. Can't be clearer than that, and that should break your heart. That is not me trying to make a point against you. That's me trying to share with you the reality so that you can properly advocate for people who are LGBTQIA identifying, because a lot of these trans activists, some of them are completely radicalized Marxists, but some of them are misguided young people who are trying to be compassionate to their peers. And if that is you, if you are trying to be compassionate to your peers, this is real compassion. To share with them the reality of what it means when they don this identity that's given to them by queer theory. There's also, of course, the philosophical meandering, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here, of what would the limiting principle be if we allowed our society to hold us hostage with the threat of suicide? Like, where would that end, right? If we give everybody what they want, or anybody something that they want just because they threaten to kill themselves, like, where does that stop? Are we gonna allow a 16-year-old girl to a 16-year-old girl to get a breast augmentation just because she threatens to kill herself? Are we going to allow a high school aged boy to run a brothel at his house just because he threatens to kill himself? Like, what is the limiting principle on this? I don't think there is a limiting principle on this. It is hostage taking. It's emotional hostage taking, and conservatives should reject it. All that being said, I'm incredibly grateful for the event last night. I had a marvelous time. It was a crazy whirlwind event, and I'm super grateful for the Young America's Foundation and especially the students at the YAF chapter on James Madison University for hosting me. And I'm really grateful for all the people that showed up, the trans activists and the leftists that came to the microphone. I do want to talk about this Tucker Carlson video. Tucker Carlson finally spoke out after he was fired from Fox News. He posted a video on Twitter last night. This happened, I think, during my event. I saw it on the drive home. And I want to play it for you and then share one little thought, one little speculation that I have. So let's play this. We bring it up.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
There are many places left, he says, but see you soon. So Tucker Carlson is going to make a comeback. That I think is very clear. I don't have any insider information on where he's going to go or when he's going to announce. I've seen all the same public reporting that you guys have that says that he has a non-compete in his Fox contract. I'm sure he'll fight that. Most talent, most personalities in cable news who have non-competes fight it in court if they have a less than civil departure from, or less than amicable departure, I should say, from their respective networks. And most times talent wins that. So my prediction is Tucker Carlson will get out of his non-compete if, in fact, he does have a non-compete, which he probably does. That's industry standard. However, I have no idea where he's going to go. I, like you, am eagerly awaiting his announcement and, speculating. I'm looking for clues and everything he says, just like everybody else. I do have one tiny little clue to share with you, though. Look at right under this video. Look at this photo. See that first comment, that top comment underneath his video? It's from Chris Pavlovsky, and it's a red heart. Do you know who Chris Pavlovsky is? Chris Pavlovsky is the CEO of Rumble. Does that mean anything? Is that a clue? Or is that Chris Pavlovsky just liking Tucker Carlson? Who's to say? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I saw that and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's something. Or maybe Chris Pavlovsky's just playing with us all. Who knows? I for one, am excited to see what Tucker's going to do. We don't have time to talk about Mattel's new Barbie with Down syndrome, but we will talk about that tomorrow. So make sure you tune in, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and YouTube on Rumble. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.